Hi, I'm Edwin,
And I'm Jack.
and welcome back to the 950 Club. Hi, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about two of our favorite romance comedies, romantic comedy anime, Sing Yesterday for Me and Horimiya. And we picked these two because they're both recent. They came out within the last year or two, and we really enjoyed them because they were different from most romantic anime. In that, in Horimiya, the characters kind of hook up right from the beginning. There
Which is
isn't,
rare.
which is rare because usually you spend either an entire season or seasons, and we know how with anime that could take years for a story to unfold. In this, no, it's right from the beginning. And then in Seeing Yesterday for Me, that one was different in that the focus is more on adults after they've graduated from college, so they're getting on into their lives. So it's not a high school focused romance.
It's a more real life,
Yeah, well, both of
mature,
these, I think both of these are a little bit more realistic.
grounded.
Yeah, they focus more on the drama of relationships than they do of like where a lot of other things there'll be a lot of focus on being in high school. And while Horimiya takes place in high school and it feels a lot like a John Hughes movie,
Yep.
um, the focus is more on the relationships.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
it's almost like a swan song towards high school love.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
it's such an innocent phase all of us endure, especially when we start to go in our dating lives. We go back a little bit towards high school, where it's a different setting.
I think what you're talking about is the angst, Jack.
Yeah,
The
and,
angst. And that's one of the things about both of these shows where there's a lot of angst. And I think unrequited love is a key factor, especially in Sing Yesterday for Me. In There's also some of that in Horimiya, especially with some of the other characters as they with Izumi and Koyuko, there's that relationship, and we're gonna get into that. But with Haru and Riku and Shinako and Ro, it's there's definitely a different vibe.
yeah,
Hmm.
and not typical. It's definitely you can understand where these characters are coming from right off the bat in a weird
Yeah.
way. So compared to like Horimiya, which is a little bit more, I wouldn't say silly, but a little bit lighter. There you go.
Well, I think that it has a little bit more gravitas than a John Hughes movie,
Yeah,
but there's definitely a slapstick factor.
yeah, and I can't help but because you mentioned John Hughes, I can't help but like Horimiya really reminds me of Ten Things I Hate About You. The reason why I bring up Ten Things I Hate About You is because uh, Miyamura, he's pretty much like Heath Ledger in that high school, in that high school movie, because he's kind of like the outcast, kind of like the what this guy kind of vibe. So, and
I get that.
yeah, and that's like a quintessential like interesting thing about high school movies because, or at least those classic high school movies, because you rarely get a character that stands out like that with a lot of depth.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on beneath the surface, and that's one of the things about Horimiya, where you start off thinking these two characters, Miyamura and Hori, are one thing, but then quickly you discover that there's something else entirely. And so they're kind of like hiding this from their classmates. And it becomes interesting because you're wondering why. I mean, you get it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, there's more beneath the surface with these
Yeah.
two, a lot more.
Yeah, and that's the first one we're going to be talking about is Horimiya.
Well, people love Horimiya, and I think that's not only because it's a good anime, but because of the manga itself. And the manga has been, it started out as a web series, and then it was turned into a manga.
Yeah,
The web series was actually called Horimiya-san to Murimiya-kun, which just means Hori and Morimiya.
there you go. Okay, and the creator is Hiro. I'm not sure if it's not pronounced really like Hiro, but Hiro. And yeah, he's done also Daily Lives of High School Boys and Asao-san to Kura Tankon, which is similar to Horimiya.
That's what he's going. He goes by Hero.
Hiro. Okay, okay.
Yeah, so it was released as a web series, and then it was a manga, and then they did a OVA of the web series, and then they did this anime.
There you go. I was wondering
So
about that.
yeah, the fans of Horimiya have been demanding uh, this for a while,
And
and
was
I'm glad they finally got it.
and was it two different mangas or was it like
So it was an The manga was an adaptation of the web series.
there you go. Okay,
Hmm.
okay. Alrighty. And coming back towards the anime, the director that takes the helms of the anime is Ishihama Masashi. He also he's done a whole slew of stuff from Tatamini Galaxy to Bleach, Fooly Cooly, Digimon Adventure, the movie, the first one, which is probably my favorite of the bunch, and also one I will mention later, Welcome to the NHK. So this director knows his stuff with high school dramas.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I think this was one that I recommended to you.
Yes.
And so what had happened is that I started reading the manga and I got hooked. I blew through like the first 10 volumes and then I found out it was going to be an anime. And I was like, oh man, I'm excited because the manga was so touching and like they really, the visuals, everything, I'm gonna say beautiful, because the artist just they did such a good job of telling the story and making it emotional, and you just have these scenes, the style, the delicate style, the thinner lines. It was just kind of breathtaking, and so I kept thinking, how are they gonna do this as an anime? And they really delivered from that opening song to that awesome closing.
Yeah, I like the
They really
songs.
delivered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the opening song is Hiro Kusui by Yu Kamiyama. Interesting song. It's kind of like a da 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 da
Yeah.
da. Da.
It has a really like almost 80s 90s
Yeah,
vibe
yeah.
to it.
It
Yeah.
a clean sound, and it's like okay, you don't think twice about it, but once you get,
Yeah, it's a little poppy,
yeah,
not too crazy,
yeah,
but like I said, yeah, it definitely has like this 80s 90s vibe going for it, which like I said, this show made me think of John Hughes movies, so that really helped too.
yeah. And then going back to your mention of the art, because the art really, it took me a while,
Hmm.
but it was like one of those things where I'm like, okay, you know what? The art's pretty good, especially in the moments where they have those like isolated moments where they had
Oh
that
yeah, the
character shade,
splashes of
the
color.
splashes of color.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you're like really like wow.
Yeah. Even the manga, I didn't really get that sense, but the anime, that's what they did good.
Well, I think that was their way of, because you have a lot of like splash pages in the manga,
Yeah.
and it takes, because what it does is it takes these moments and it uses the art to like prolong the moment
Yeah.
or make the moment more special. And I think that's how they did it they're like, how are we going to translate this into the visual, into the animated form? And I think those splashes of color really helped out.
Well, for roll call, the art director is Mori Yasu now, and this person probably is the reason for that. So it's like one of those things where if I had to pick apart his brain and mention that inspiration, I would do it right off the bat because
Yeah.
I know I don't see that too often in anime. So
No,
yeah,
it's kind of like a watercolor painting.
yeah.
Hmm.
And it was more consistent, and even with the manga it's kind of rigid at times. And like you mentioned, it started off as a web comic, so you're like, okay, maybe the limitations were there.
Well, it's adapting something that was already, so it's like, and that's where you get into this question of like the creativity behind the like what are the, because essentially you have the original material,
Hmm.
then you have the OVA, then you have the manga, and then you have the anime. So each is an interpretation of the original material. So it's like, how do you handle that? Like with the anime, and I think we've discussed this before with other adaptations of the source material. It's like, how do you decide what's going to get included and what's not going to get included? Uh, Horimiya is like a 15 volume manga.
Yeah,
So when they did the anime, there's a lot of stuff that they had to cut out. And I missed a lot of it because there was a lot of funny stuff. There was some really touching moments that they had to leave out. But I think what they wanted to do was they wanted to make sure that they got you the complete story.
yeah.
Like, here's the story of these characters.
Well,
It's complete. Yeah.
you mentioned me before we recorded that the main focus being the main relationship
Hmm.
of Hori and
Well, they
Miyamura.
get into a
Yeah,
lot of the other relationships, but they don't. They cover all their bases,
yeah.
so to speak, with the different characters that they each introduce throughout the manga. You just don't get all the moments with those characters.
There you go.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. And we'll mention later on what relationships were cut off or like little bits and pieces. And that was my initial impression first time watching it. Like Edwin mentioned, he recommended it to me. And I wasn't hesitant. It was just a matter of timing. And once we were deciding, you know what, let's do it for a episode, I was on board. I'm like, yeah, it would be perfect for seeing yesterday for me, bouncing back and forth. And watching it, I was like, okay, a nice little beginning. Then the second episode, I was like, wait a second, I'm missing something
Yeah,
because the mom mentioned to Miyamura and Hori, oh, you've been hanging out all this time, and this is like during summer break, which will tie into like the plot and everything. But it's like, wait, we missed all that time. Well,
yeah,
what went on? So it's just that type of like anime structure. So
yeah. Well, like I said, well, I think what it was is that the creators wanted to give you the complete story because with anime, you're never sure if you're going to A, get a second season, B, if you do, is it going to be the same studio?
yeah.
So I think they're thinking. I think their thought process was like, let's give them the entire
Yeah,
story.
and you bring up the OVA too,
Hmm.
and for me, hey, why not have a few more OVAs or just like a nice little similar? We never learned Bobukin, like
Well, the OVA was actually a separate thing that adapted the web series, and Horimiya adapts the manga. So I think you have a separate, a totally different voice cast,
yes,
and that actually came out before the anime.
yes,
Um, I had heard that they were thinking about doing an OVA that follows the this
this
anime,
anime,
but let's see what happens.
yeah,
I'm hopeful. I'd like to see these characters again.
yeah,
I fell in love with them, and so I would love to see that, to see where it goes, because a lot of times you don't get the follow up, and sometimes when you do, it's a little scary, like Claned.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It happens.
Yeah,
It happens.
yeah.
But yeah, let's go back with the characters in the beginning and this whole thing because even though we jumped a little bit, this is like our preview section. So for here on out, it's going to be relatively spoiler heavy. So if you're interested in with the show, watch it right now. So
Hmm.
or read the manga, either one. So
I would say to either or.
to
Don't.
either
I
or.
mean,
For me, like because watching the anime and what Edwin's told me, I'm like, I kind of wish I read the manga first.
yeah. I mean, well, no. I'm gonna tell you what I really feel. Do both.
Do both.
Read the manga. You're gonna love it. Watch the show. You're gonna love that too.
There you go.
Because I mean, they're both great. The anime is kind of like the manga distilled. So just check out both of them. I don't think you'll regret it.
There you go. Okay.
Mhm.
So with the first episode, we have Miramura, who is kind of like this outcast, this weird little kid that nobody talks to in the class, and this is they're in their final year of high school, so he pretty much hasn't made stable friendships.
Yeah, he's kind of an outsider. and everybody views him as the gloomy weirdo who
Yeah.
just sits at his desk and doesn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, and it's a typical introduction or typical. I guess I would consider a trope like starting off, and this is like a theme of the show too because tropes are there, but also there's a meaning behind those and their purpose behind those too.
Well, they when he's leaving the class, Horimiya's little clique, they kind of comment on how quiet he is and how
Yeah,
he
how
doesn't
is he
really talk.
otaku?
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
he's probably an otaku who has a bunch of like a bunch of
Store toys and stuff.
yeah toys, and he's not.
No,
It's
no.
like you're in for a surprise with him.
Yeah, and then sure enough, that the surprise later on is also with our other character, our main female protagonist. I would consider her the main protagonist because she's the one that kind of gets the story going. It's Hori, and
Hmm.
she is the popular girl. Everyone likes her, and she kind of like makes people happy. And once she gets home, though, different story.
Oh yeah, she's a total homemaker. I
Yeah,
mean, she's her parents are kind of like out of the picture.
and they're
Yeah.
the parents are interesting. They're kind of like older teenagers. That's the best way I describe them.
Yeah, I get that vibe from them,
and
especially the dad.
yeah, and we have to put in a context because Hori is also an older sister to Soda, her little brother, who is probably in preschool or kindergarten, one of those.
Yeah, he's a lot younger.
Yeah,
He's a lot younger, and that's the connection. On his way home from school, Soda gets scared by a dog and falls and hurts his nose, and Miramura finds him and escorts him home.
but the thing is that Miramura is not what he is in school.
No, not at all.
It's the classic old trope: when you wear glasses, you're a totally different person.
Yeah, he shows up at Hori's house, and he's got his hair pulled up, and he's got like a
Uh,
bunch of piercings and
We're
tattoos.
talking piercings around the lip, like not even typical for guys who do piercings.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
guy who seems like a total outcast nerd at school is like Mr. Cool, like Mr. Pretty, Mr. Hot Boy.
yeah,
Yeah, and so he shows up, and Hori's has no idea this is him.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's like one of those scenarios where Soda becomes immediate friends with them,
Oh yeah.
like an older brother type of thing. And Hori's taking it back. She kind of like is like, okay, let me just give you something to drink. Thank you for the trouble. And then little by little, they find out they go to the same school.
Well, it dawns because he recognizes her.
Yep, yep,
He's not like he recognizes her. He knows exactly who she is.
yeah,
She has no clue he is because he looks so different from what he was before that she's totally thrown off. She pauses. She's like, "Oh my God, who is this?"
yeah,
And when it dawns on her, she's shocked.
yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah, the Hori means well, but later on you'll understand Hori's dynamic and like little quirks that are even more reserved in the beginning, because the theme of the show ultimately is appearances, and Miyamura later on in the season mentions that the reason why he likes Hori is because she breaks down barriers and she breaks down appearances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's later on, but going back to early beginnings, Miramura is kind of like, okay, I kind of like this girl. She's cool, but nothing more. And Hori the same way, but Hori in a different part, she actually gets more and more attracted to Miramura. And as Edwin mentioned earlier with this romance, it's not a typical romance because you would see this kind of trope kind of story in most anime romances play out. And it's the whole season. Like, are they, will they? And a classic trope is the main protagonist, you never see him kiss. It's
Yeah.
just like a, illusion. Well, not illusion, but it's like a wishful thinking towards like, they'll kiss, but not on camera kind of thing. So,
Well, they do kiss.
yeah, bring it back towards why it's not
Yeah.
normal.
Well, the thing I like about this show is that the main focus isn't on will they get together or want to get together.
Far from it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they get together. They get together
By a third or fourth
they
episode.
do
Yeah.
and they don't.
Yeah.
You kind of get the idea that they are together, and all of their friends are like, "Wait, they're spending more time together.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
going on?"
And that's the build up. And
Mhm.
even when it happens, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, their friends are kind of like we we got that something was going on before you two did,
Yeah, yeah.
which is kind of is pretty much standard operating procedure for most romantic things.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you guys are together. You guys may not want to say that you're together, but everybody else thinks that you're together.
What's also very fascinating of this romance is that, like, even though he starts off as a super outcast, nobody wants to talk to him. By the third or fourth episode, he becomes friends with the clique,
Yeah.
and that's rare. And you're like, what? How did this happen? Like I mentioned with the manga, they have here and there snippets where they make sense, but even manga kind of transitions towards like, yeah, this is no big deal. We're friends now.
Well, his relationship with Hori, spending time with her, kind of like gets him involved with everybody else
Yeah.
because like Toru, their friend Toru, he actually has a crush on Hori.
Yeah, and that's another thing of this show. There's love triangles. Let's put it
There's
that
a
way.
lot of love triangles, Jack.
Taurus is the most interesting because he doesn't really go advance. He doesn't do anything.
No, he's like he plays it. I'm not gonna say that he plays it really cool, but he's definitely not the picture that the anime paints of him. And like you said, the one of the themes about this show, one of the main themes is appearances.
Yeah,
He seems like the bad boy.
the pretty bad boy, kind of
Yeah.
like the main jock in the high school drama.
Yeah, but then he's really not because
No,
Miramura,
he's the most reserved, I would say.
yeah,
Yeah,
Miramura turns out to be a little bit more aggressive,
yeah.
assertive.
Yeah.
I'll
Once he got
say,
more confident. Yeah,
yeah, I'll say assertive. Well, that's one of the things about this anime that I really related to is Miramura isn't he's not your typical protagonist.
there you go. Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
they take because in most romances, you'll have somebody who is not maybe a little bit socially awkward, doesn't really get it. It's like, all right, uh, and there are times when Mirror can be dumb as a box of rocks,
Yeah,
and Hori points this out.
yeah.
But at the same time, he's a little bit sharper. I like his history in that this kid has suffered.
Yeah,
Uh,
and going back with the high school setting and the school setting,
yeah,
that's a key factor for growth. And everyone's had that experience of like being bullied to, not fitting in with the mold and school structure.
yeah.
And Horimiya does that, but it does it to his own advantage too.
Yeah, he provides a lot of the seriousness
Yeah,
of this anime.
all characters
Uh,
in this anime have like a thing, and each coexists with appearances. Like I don't want to show my sad side. I don't want to show my love for boys, things
yeah.
like that. So
Well, they're all the angst of being a teenager.
yeah.
I think Miramura is the one that suffers it the most.
Oh yeah, but in a weird way, it turns around the most seamless.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely a growth to his character over the course of the anime,
Yeah,
and he's the one where the main focus is on his history. You get a little bit of everybody's history, like Hori's history with the student council president, and then Toru and all the other ones. But there's a lot of focus on Miramura's past
yeah,
and how ostracized he felt from his classmates to the point where he acts out and getting the tattoos, doing the
yeah.
piercings.
Even though like he wasn't totally outcast, he did have friends in grammar school. They still like they meet up eventually, kind of thing.
I like that friendship, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
interesting.
I think that friendship is a little bit one sided.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And part of me feels like Miramar is kind of imagining most of this because we all have that moment when we're younger, especially.
Yeah.
We just don't know how to translate things.
Well, Koichi kind of like forces himself on
Like super best friends,
Miramura is
buddy.
like, we're gonna be buddies,
Yeah.
and Miramura's like, he seems, dude, he seems really annoyed by that friendship
This guy.
to the point where he just like hits him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and Miramura eventually has an aggressive side. He even has a fight with one of the pretty boys, Kakuro. He's like the student council president or something.
Oh, that situation. Yeah. Where in that he was defending Hori.
Yeah.
He was like, you're not going to And that's one of the moments where like you start to realize he cares about this girl and
Yeah.
he's not gonna let somebody like defame her name.
Yeah, and going back to the main romance, Hori, Miyamura, they have moments, and Hori's like a scary movie fan. She
Oh yeah,
loves watching scary movies, and Miyamura's the wimp. He's like, I don't like it,
yeah,
and and there's a moment where Hori's kind of like fighting her own like thing. Like she's like, oh, you're not gonna hold me because her friends were like, yeah, you kind of need to be more of a girl in this romance. Yeah, and there's a specific episode with that in accordance with the parents. It's like, no, you got to be the girlfriend. He's got to be the man. He's got to be the one protecting you.
yeah.
So,
Well, it comes back to appearances in that at school she's like the popular pretty girl, the popular pretty smart girl, uh, but she also isn't dating anybody
yeah.
because she turns a lot of people down, and I think that's because she does have this double life of essentially being a caregiver for her family,
Her brother, especially.
raising her brother and taking care of her dad and her mom, essentially.
Yeah.
You know,
Her
she,
dad's kind of like not in the picture, but in the picture, and her mom's kind of aloof. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't, wouldn't say, I think, yeah, you could go with aloof, but she's an office worker who
Yeah.
has to work a lot of overtime.
Yeah. It
So that
tires
kind of
her out.
leaves Hori with the running of the house. And so she really doesn't have time for a relationship. And I think that this ends up being perfect because Miramura is really low maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like their relationship is very quiet. It's like he comes over the house, he spends time with them, and that's how their relationship develops. And it's a very slice of life, kind of like really quiet, romantic kind of thing.
Yeah.
In that these people are just sharing their time together because they can. They
Yeah.
don't have to keep up.
And that's a mature take with the romance itself because a lot of
Mhm.
romances are pretty much like that. Like, you know what? Let me introduce you to my family. This is what I'm like when I'm not in school. Like I want to relax. I
Yeah.
don't want to be thinking about school. And that's a huge thing about this anime too, because a character like Shu, for example, he's like the super preppy, super like happy. Hey guys, what's up? I relate with him greatly. Not gonna lie, because I am that guy. I just want to have people laughing, enjoying themselves. But when I'm back home, that mode is off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a specific episode with that too, because
His relationship with his sister. Yeah.
yeah, and it's one of those things where family is a different type of like friendship. Family is like a different mode you're in, and it's a tough thing to bring up because you don't want to disrespect your family in all regards because you live with them, you grow up with them, they've known your different sides as they are. But sometimes with friendships, that's your outlet. Like I'm away from my family,
Yeah.
so and that's like a
Well, I think Shu wanted to be the life of the party.
yeah.
He's the fun-loving, loud guy who talks a lot and is playing games all the
And you
time.
think he's like a background character, and that's kind of like the flaw of the show. Like the two Miyamura and Hori are kind of like the main, and even though they're part of the clique is kind of like kind of like in and out. Like you don't see who they like initially, but episode by episode you kind of get that. So
Well, yeah, they grow. Well, the relationships change as Hori and Morimiya get closer to each other.
yeah,
Like Toru, his crush on, so he becomes friends with Morimiya,
yeah,
and his crush on Hori ends.
pretty much.
And so here he is, kind of dejected and alone. And so now, but at the same time, he's opened up. That's opened him up to other experiences.
Yeah, and specifically Yuki, who's also kind of like Taro in a way. Like, oh, I'm not thinking for myself. A few episodes dedicated to her, like
Hmm.
saying, and like I said, that's kind of flaws. Like you don't initially get that growth from Yuki right off the bat until a certain episode. Like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't prepared for that. And
that comes later on. Yeah.
yeah, and Yuki, I was mentioning this to Edwin, and I was kind of mad at me, but Yuki's my least favorite
I
character.
like Yuki. I like Yuki. I think if anybody's my least favorite character, it would have to be oh my god, the student council president.
The Kakuro.
Yeah, Kakuro.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I just he just made me mad.
Well, initially, and
Yeah.
then he turns out to be a wimp anyway. So it's like, yeah, it's true.
Well, he turns out to be a wimp, but I do like the fact that he's trying to be strong for his girlfriend because he wants to protect her.
Yeah,
And I thought that, like you said, everybody has like a more than one side to them.
yeah,
Yeah, he's a wimp, but at the same time, he wants to be strong to protect his girlfriend.
yeah,
And his girlfriend even says he's weak,
yeah.
but he tries to be strong for her. And I thought that
Which is
kind of,
Remy, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of redeemed him
yeah,
for
and
me. But
they don't get lovey-dovey at all, and so it's like, oh, I guess they're hooked up. I never knew that. So
yeah, the student council is a little bit weird.
yeah,
You're not really sure what their relationships
or what they're
are.
doing really.
Yeah.
Like Sakura is like, where's Toru? Poor
Or
Sakura.
where's Remy? Remy opens the window.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that's her only job. Is that all she can handle?
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Well, we're bringing back to Sakura. It was the green hair glasses girl, and she has like moments, but you feel bad for her because they totally ignore her. I'm like, come on, she has a
Well,
story.
I like the fact that so when we're talking about her, I like her arc. I like her arc a lot. It was very bittersweet. She develops feelings for Toru and they're not reciprocated. But she tries.
Yeah,
She tries and the student body president, Kakaru, he actually says something where it's like, it's really nobody's fault. And it really isn't.
no,
Because yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah, because she's happy that she doesn't have the regret of not telling him,
mm-hmm.
but she's also sad because she was rejected. And I really liked that moment because for me it made it really it was real. It was handled in a very mature
Probably the
way.
most mature of all of them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it was bittersweet.
Hmm.
Even Toru, even though he didn't get the girl, it was like a nice little like, yeah, I like this guy. He's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, he's not gonna force anybody, and I don't think it's that he's not assertive,
Yeah,
but he's not gonna force. He's gonna make sure that, like with Yuki, his relationship with Yuki, he's gonna let her go at her own pace.
yeah,
Like he's gonna make sure that she knows that he cares about her,
yeah,
and he's not gonna let her get down on herself. And I like that too because these characters care about each other, and these relationships really grow
yeah.
over the course of the series. And Miramura really appreciates his friendships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and that's pretty much the whole season of itself, the whole anime, and like I said, it makes me really want to finish up the manga because I only read the first three, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, there has to be more stories.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely,
exactly,
man. Like
and
this show is really funny.
yeah,
Like once you get past once Miramura and Hori are together,
they're more loose.
it it kind of becomes like a romantic comedy for them. For
Yeah,
everybody else, you still have your serious moments where they're like we said with Sakura and Toru and Yuki and Remy and all of them. You have your serious moments, even with Shu and his sister trying to get her into school. You have all your serious moments, but for the main protagonist, it becomes funnier and funnier and funnier.
yeah.
Where these situations kind of almost there's some slapstick. It never gets goofy and it never gets too cheesy.
It's just a nice
But
change of pace.
it was a nice change of
Yeah.
pace,
So-
and the moments are really funny.
Yeah, especially with Hori because Hori has she has a she
Man,
has
she's violent, man.
well
She's-
she's a kink. A
what-
kink.
Look, even if you're not going to talk about her kink, we can leave that alone. She's violent.
Yep.
She's like she hits him,
Yep.
but Miramura's not a pushover
No, no.
entirely.
And he has to play that role too, just for an episode or two, and you're
I
like,
mean-
oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, she even refers to him like when her mom says, "What's he like?" She's like, "He's like an anime villain."
That was a good line.
Yeah, that was a really good
Yeah.
line.
Toru had a lot of good lines too. He would be like, "Oh, what a twist!"
Oh yeah.
There's like subtle like one-liners in there, and
Oh, I loved it when he was watching Swadua
yeah,
when she shows up, and Swadua is one of the first years.
yeah.
Yeah, she's a first year
And
student,
she has a crush on Hori.
well, at first you think that she's stalking Miramura,
There you go.
but then you realize that she's in love with Hori, and there's a moment where like she grabs Hori and won't let go, and Miramura's trying to like pull her off, like, "Come on, girl, what's wrong with
Yeah,
you?"
and
And Toru's cracking up,
that's
and
where he
he's
said,
calling people, he's
yeah.
texting people. He's like, "You got to come see this. This is hilarious."
And that's where he said, "What a twist!"
Yeah, he's like, "Oh,
That was probably my favorite line in the whole thing. That's
yeah,
probably my favorite episode too. The more I think about it,
yeah."
but yeah, and
And then that's one of the things where I suggest going back and reading the manga
yeah,
because with Swadwa, there's a lot more that happens
you
with that.
feel that.
Yeah,
And like I said, even like when I mentioned Sakura, like how limited she is, there has to be a little bit more there too. And these characters are so unique and so like when they try to explain what they are with appearances and showing their inner selves, there has to be a little bit more depth towards that, not
yeah.
just in one episode. So yeah, and I didn't even get to towards this question of Miramura. I'm convinced he's bi, and that's okay.
No, he's not.
Oh,
See, the thing is that, and Hori talks about this. It's a really funny. It's funny,
or he comes off as bi,
kind of
maybe.
like an '80s or '90s way. No, he's just really pretty.
There you go.
He's really pretty. He's not as pretty as Akane, but he's really pretty.
Yeah.
And I think what it is with Miramura is it goes back to, and this is going to get a little bit serious for a minute. It goes back to his early school, his middle school, his
Yeah.
grade school, middle school, where he was such an outcast and he didn't have friends. And yeah, he was bullied.
But
Uh,
specifically by Makio.
yeah,
And
he was bullied by
yeah,
Makio.
Makio turns out to be a character. Like even he begins to be, he's the blue haired guy. He starts to be like the bully, like the main bully towards Miramura.
Yeah, and this is stuff that happened in his past.
Yeah.
So Miramura has never belonged.
Yeah.
And he's never belonged and he's never been part of a group. He hasn't he had Koichi, but that was it
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And now he's got an entire group of friends and so he's a little bit sensitive about it.
Yeah.
He's sensitive about it and I think that he's really happy to have these male relationships to the point where Hori gets a little jealous.
That's what I mean.
You
Yeah.
know, and she says that, and one of the things that they play for comedy is that, she's not worried about him going after another girl. She's worried about him going after another boy.
Yeah.
But that's only because these relationships are so special to him
Yeah.
because he's never happened to them.
Yeah.
But there's no question in Hori's ridiculous because there's no question in my mind that Miramura is going to stick with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it was like one of those episodes you're like, wait a second.
Oh yeah,
what a twist.
They play that for laughs.
There you go.
And the girls comment on that a lot. They're like,
Yeah.
boys are so weird.
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
That's another good line.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what me and Edwin are talking about with this anime, going back and forth with the different subplots, you have to watch each episode. You really go with the progression of it, and once you get to the final episode of this anime, it's graduation. This anime for me is like a love song towards high school.
Yes. I felt really nostalgic
Yeah.
watching this show. I did not like high school.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
In high school, I had a bittersweet aspect to it towards it, where you're like, yeah, I did had good times. There's not all of it's rainy, but seeing these characters, having their time in high school and taking advantage of it, learning from their mistakes, breaking out of their mold, growing up, you name
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and that's Horimiya in a nutshell.
Yeah. It captures that sense of being young,
Yeah,
of figuring out who you are.
friendships.
Yeah, about how those times can be fun, but those times can also be painful.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially for Miramura. And there's some things that the anime does where he's either dreaming about his younger self or he's literally talking to his younger self saying, "Hey, we did it. We're
Yeah.
okay.
it's literally
We made it."
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's in the last episode too. So
And it's really sad. It's bittersweet because he is happy. He's happy where he's gotten,
And he's
but
surprised, yeah.
but the feelings from when he was a child are still there until his younger self says, "Hey, we're gonna go away,"
Yeah.
and so he says what he does. It's almost he's reconciling with that part of himself, but that part of himself is also saying, "Hey, you're okay, so we're gonna go now because we're okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and there you go. That's Horimiya right there.
Hmm.
So we highly recommend it if you want that romance. I know we're far away from Valentine's Day, but hey, it's always good to watch a romance in our
Yeah.
book.
Watch the
Yeah,
anime, read the manga.
yeah,
You know, it's worth it.
yeah.
Definitely.
And on a side note, I would like to mention this one quote from Haruki Murakami. He mentions this wonderful quote about appearances, which is the theme of Horimiya, and like we mentioned before, appearances are super important in every culture and aspect of life, especially in Japanese culture, because it's kind of like their upbringing, and appearances are definitely important. But according to Haruki Murakami, from his book 1Q84, he mentions, "Don't let appearances fool you. There's always one reality." That's a nice little quote because it's like at the end of the day, you're in this one big world out there. Just make it happen. It's your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool message. And talk about books that you should read.
Yep.
Yep.
I have the book in there. And Edwin had to mention the title, what it means.
Yeah. 1Q84 is his play on 1984.
Yep.
Yeah.
And because Q is
Well, Q, that's the way nine sounds in Japanese.
there, you go.
Hmm.
We're gonna be taking our first break.
We're gonna be taking our first break.
Coming up, we're gonna have Sing Yesterday for Me.
Coming up, we're gonna sing Yesterday for Me.
Thank you, Zanjo.
And now we'll be talking about another one of our favorite romantic anime, which is Sing Yesterday for Me. The manga series is actually a lot older. It premiered in December of 1997, and the anime didn't come out till spring of 2020.
Yeah, and it continued on to 2015,
Hmm.
which is fascinating. It's like one of those things where if I can learn Japanese today, like right off the bat, I've been trying. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I need to talk to this creator because why did it take that long? And like reading the original comic and everything, I'm like I need to see this because that's quite fascinating. Because this is like a translucent anime in my book because it's relatively modern, but technically it's in the 90s.
Well, yeah, they use phones,
Yeah, they
like
use phones.
actual like house, like
Yeah,
landline phones.
and first time watching it, I didn't pick it up. I was like, okay. Second time, I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, there's not. This isn't an anime that focuses on like technology. You don't see a bunch of laptops or
Or
iPads or
commentary towards Japanese society or
yeah,
society in general.
yeah.
It's a total slice of life anime. It's like, no, no, watch these four characters, these four main characters, technically, and yeah, this is a story.
Well, I think you do get some of the cultural like
Well, they're outcasts. There is a
well,
commentary. I would
I
admit
think
that.
Haru
Yeah,
and Riku they're definitely they've kind of like dropped out of
yeah,
society.
not the
Um,
norm. They don't follow the norm.
no, because Riku is working at a convenience store. He's graduated from college. He's kind of like lost his way. He's not very ambitious. He's not very, he's just kind of going along with things. He's not sure what to do with his life. I mean, I think that you would call him maybe a slacker.
Uh, Preoccupied.
Uh, well, he's not. Well, he's self-aware.
Yeah,
He's not. It's not like this is. He knows he's being a slacker. He knows he could be doing more. he's just not sure what that is at
And
this moment in his life.
yeah, and for context, he is an aspired photographer. He wants to be a photographer, but he doesn't want to take that chance. He's afraid.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things about this show, and it's definitely that fear of committing to something.
Yeah, and that's a strong theme.
Oh yeah,
Strong theme for this one.
definitely.
And that's why I really like this anime. I have to state the fact that this is a guaranteed top 10, maybe 20 all-time favorite anime of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that more people don't like this anime.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I want to bring that up too. Horimiya, for first flaws, it's highly rated, and that's a pretty surprising fact because it's in myanimelist.com, it's 8.2 around there for now for stars. Seeing yesterday for me, according to my anime list, with its viewers that watched it, it's around 6.9. That disappoints me.
Yeah. Me too, because
And I don't get angry over reviews in general, but man, did that make me angry.
well, there's some things that they do to you in this anime that we're gonna get into, but you can get mad.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can get mad. The characters are a little bit older too,
Yeah.
and it's not high school centered.
Yeah, and then, like I said, it's a different time lapse. Like you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Super slice of life, like super mundane at times.
Well, I wouldn't say mundane, but I do think that this show takes its time.
Yeah, there's a build, and the time that's used is efficient. That's a strong thing for this strong strength of this anime too. But it's definitely not your typical slice of life anime.
No, it's not it's not your typical romance anime, and it's not your typical slice of life either.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and like I mentioned with the year, with the context, Ryuko, he's smoking, and even now that's kind of like a weird, outdated trope too, with the outcast main character. Right off the bat, you're in for a more mature take on romance, and like, yeah, this is how it is sometimes.
Well, it's like with Horimiya, uh, the thing about Sing Yesterday for me is there's no laughs.
Yeah,
There's there might be funny moments, but they're not playing this show for laughs at all.
no.
This
It's a
is
drama.
It's a drama.
Yeah.
It's a romantic drama.
And the Haru is pretty much the light at the end of the tunnel, like beautiful person, energetic, and she has funny moments. But it's not like ha ha ha. It's more like, oh, she's cute.
Yeah.
And
She's trying to be positive because her situation is, and she says this too at some point. She's like, all of this can get kind of gloomy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of that,
I mean, it's someone who loves you.
yeah,
When you love someone and they're not in love with you and you still want to be around them, that's kind of hard.
that's tough. That's tough.
That's tough that's one of that was there were moments where this anime was tough to watch.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it was bad in any way, shape, or form, but you can feel Haru's pain.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into these characters.
Yeah.
Riku is the main character.
Yes.
This show is pretty much about him.
Main focus.
Yeah, and his romantic involvements.
Yes.
And so there's the two women that happen to be in his life, which
at the same time.
Yeah, which is Haru. And then
the introduction of Haru was pretty cute right off the bat because you see Ryuko in the convenience store. He's taking out the trash. He's like minding his own business, and there's a group of crows that come in. These crows are looking for food, and Ryuko, he's like, yeah, I'm going to feed him some crows. Then there's this one crow on the side that takes his food eventually. Then out of nowhere, here comes Haru.
Yep.
The crow girl.
To make his life difficult.
And yeah, I would have to admit this. Haru is kind of a pixie girl. She's in at the moment.
Oh, your manic pixie dream girl.
She fits the trope. I will admit that.
She's not as manic.
No.
I think,
in a weird
yeah.
way, she's kind of like ahead of her time.
I could see that. Well,
Yeah.
she since this was written in the '90s, I could kind of see that she has a little bit of that vibe.
Yeah, and this is before Garden State, before 500 Days of Summer.
Mhm.
So, even like Haruki Murakami, like we mentioned earlier, like a lot of his female characters tend to fall in that trope too.
Yeah.
But it's in the purpose of like showing the character his wishful thinkings towards a girl. And
Well,
and the key thing with Ruko, it's not really his cup of tea.
no, not at all.
There you go.
Well, he's kind of annoyed by her
Yes.
to start with
Yep.
because she's like got all this energy and she's asking him for things that he kind of doesn't want to give her, and he kind of just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
He's got his routine. He works at the convenience store. He goes home. He drinks. He plays games, and that's pretty much his life. And it's Haru, and then his college crush, Shinako. When they pop up back into his life, it becomes kind of like, okay, now something has to
Yeah.
happen.
And how she's introduced to the picture is the same episode, the debut episode. Like I mentioned, Haru meets Ryuko in the alley, and that's a thing too, because it's like, okay, I'm down my luck. I'm working this crappy job, and there's this cute girl talking to me, whatever. But she's kind of annoying. I don't like her. Once he goes inside the store, we meet Shinako and Shinako's old college crush. And she's like, "Oh, hey, I didn't know you worked here." And
Well, his friend Fukuda invites him to a college reunion.
there you go.
And he's like, dude, it's only been a year. Why are we doing a reunion?
Yeah,
And he tells him, oh, it'll be fun. You should come. But he's working at the convenience store.
yeah.
And so Shinako actually brings him some leftovers from
Party.
the party.
There you go.
And so he's really surprised to see her again. Like he seriously had a serious crush on her. And so he is like, he wants to rekindle this, and he has his doubts, and there's these characters, especially Riku and Shinako, are very reserved
Yes, and
for their own reasons, and that's one of the fun things about this anime is where they're reserved, kind of their opposites in Haru and Ro is that they're way more energetic.
and young,
Yeah, and young.
and like thus the title of the anime, "Sing Yesterday" for me. Like we're musing towards our yesteryears, like our youthful days.
Yeah.
What if we could have fixed our ways early on?
Well, at the same time, they're trying to figure out what their lives will be as adults.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the past is definitely holding on to them,
Yeah.
especially for Shinako and Ro,
Yeah,
and for Haru in different ways.
or in different ways because she's a high school dropout.
Yeah. Like, so essentially, she was working at a bar serving drinks, but she wasn't drinking anything. But being underage, she got suspended, and so she just didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
So she dropped out.
And I met people like that. You'd be surprised. A lot of people have dropped out of high school, and eventually they find their ways and their footing. I would consider it common, but I also say it slaps you in the face.
Well, these people are trying to figure out their lives.
Yeah.
They've graduated. Shinako and Riku have they've graduated from college. Shinako has her stuff together.
Yeah, she's the only one.
Yeah, she's pretty much the only one.
Yeah, but yet her limitations, as it were, are her reservations. And
Well, she's got more going on, and it's because, like what you said, Sing Yesterday for Me, she's got, so in her past, she was dating someone, Rose's older brother,
Yeah,
and so he passed away, and so that has made her her attachment to him, um, it permeates everything about her.
yeah.
Really. She's still holding on to this relationship that was like 6 years prior.
Yeah, and throughout that stretch, no relationships, even in college.
Yeah, because Riku kind of comments on this. She's like a widow.
Yeah,
She's holding on to this relationship, and she kind of hasn't moved on from it. So when Riku confesses, at first, the first time I saw this, I was kind of annoyed with Shinako. But on my second watching this when I was getting ready for the podcast, I was like, "Oh, I get it.
yeah.
I get it now."
It's a slow
Yeah.
burn, and I will say this: it doesn't demean her, but she's technically the antagonist of this show. For Haru, and for Riku, even for Ro.
Yeah.
And she's like the most anti-antagonist of the bunch in real life, but for this
Yeah.
purpose for the story,
Well, because
yeah,
she just wants to take care of people,
yeah,
and the ghost of her, the
past
ghost of her
or
past
yesterday,
is kind of haunting her to the point where it's almost crippling her
yeah,
in her relationships with everybody.
yeah,
When Haru, who in her past she met Riku, and she kind of fell in love with him at that point.
it was like, even though she had longer hair, he didn't even notice her.
Oh, it was a total transformation for
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Like she looks like a totally different character.
She
So I
looks
can kind
older.
of see
Yeah, and
why.
she looks older because
Yeah.
cuts off her hair. She's like, I'm, the manic pixie girl before the pixie girls.
Well, he didn't notice her. He was off his own little world, and he didn't notice her.
Yeah,
I mean, he's older than her, so I get it. But when she declares war against Shinako, Shinako's so overwhelmed.
yeah. She's
She's like, "What is happening here?"
yeah,
And so this becomes kind of like, they Haru doesn't think that she can win, but essentially they're fighting for Riku,
yeah,
and he's just like, "There's no fight." But in the end, it turns out like there was.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I have to add to Edwin is that Shinako, she was also a former teacher of Haru, which is interesting too, how they can tie in together with that.
Yeah, that the familiarity.
Adds to the
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah, it adds to the drama. But Haru tells her like, "Hey, look, I don't blame you for any of that. But I'm gonna fight you for this
Yeah,
guy."
yeah, and Haru is the only person in this anime really that pretty much confesses since day one, the first second, really, that hey, you're my boy,
Yeah.
I'm your girl.
Well, she commits. She commits to this because, like we said, one of the themes of this show is about commitment,
Yes,
and she's tired of running. She's tired of, and she makes a comment about liars, how
yes.
liars have it so much
I'm
easier.
looking at it right now as we speak.
Hmm.
People hate liars, but people like liars. You lie, you play along with what people say, and live a bullshit life or BS life. You have nothing to hurt people or be hurt by. You become worthless, and you become sick of being with other people. That's why I quit school. Liars don't lose anything, but they don't gain anything.
Yeah.
That's a telling quote. And this is the first episode.
Yeah. Oh, right out of the gate, Haru is like a little tornado.
Yeah.
In her personality and everything. She's kind of the one that pushes all of this stuff along.
Yeah.
Riku confesses to Shinako, but at the same time, you wonder if he would have done that if Haru hadn't been around.
Yeah, and in context too, Ryuko, he always wanted to ask her out since graduation. Really, that's when their love kind of like his love for her started. But she was, like Edwin mentioned, kind of has a past that needs to be, have closure.
Yeah, and we can talk about Ro now. So Ro is her dead boyfriend's younger brother, and as she was dating his brother, and as they grew up, they kind of became like brother and sister.
Like an older sister.
Yeah, she would go and cook for them because their mother had passed away when they were younger. So she would go and cook for them, and that just became part of her life. This family, she became part of this family.
Yeah, she cooks for them every now and then.
Yeah, she goes over, she cooks for them, and that becomes more and more awkward as Ro expresses his growing feelings for her.
Yeah. And this is a kid.
Mhm.
He's still a kid, and he has an older brother complex because the older brother was the more attentive one, even though he was sickly. Ro has a unique talent of painting and drawing and art in general, and he has talent, but unfortunately, his older brother still has a big shadow over the family, and Ro is trying to fight that.
Yeah.
And in case in point with Shinako, he's trying to overcome that to get with Shinako.
Well, he loves Shinako.
Yeah.
And he wants to protect her. And he understands what his brother meant to her, but he's also gone.
Yeah.
And they're here and she's been a part of his life for as long as he can remember.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to lose her, and he's trying to grow up fast so that he can, be somebody who's worthy of her.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't really know how to handle it because she hasn't let go of her. She's having so much trouble dealing with the death of her boyfriend and how that's really her only relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the first 4 episodes because each episode has like a key uh, plot towards the main character or the characters, if you will.
Hmm.
And I like how each episode ends too because they have like little artifacts and like little knickknacks that describe the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute little like
This
Easter egg.
this show has some like interesting closings.
Yeah.
And they change throughout the
Yeah,
series.
which is rare. And this is a limited series. This is 12 episodes.
Yeah, and there's at least 3 different closings.
Yeah.
My favorite's the video game
Yeah,
closing.
and the artist is Saruri. She also did music for My Hero Academia.
Cool.
For last season, one of the closing songs. Very interesting voice, and I've listened to most of her catalog. It's pretty dang good. Recommend it.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then that close, like Edwin mentioned, that closing is pretty cool because it's an arcade game, and it has Haru as like this Galaga type character.
Yeah. She's flying through the city with her crow, and they're shooting out little laser
Hearts.
boats.
It turns out to
Little
be hearts.
Yeah.
Because she's aiming towards Ryuko.
Yeah.
And then like you get bonus points, but then unfortunately like game over because Haru is with Shinako.
Yeah.
Like that's such a meta closing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it made me sad.
Yeah, but it's beautiful and the song fits in quite well with it.
Yeah.
And that ties in with the show ultimately because that's the whole arc, if you will. Haru trying to get with Ryuko trying to get with Shinako being this like entity point where everyone's trying to reach her in a weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she's Riku's love interest.
Yes.
She's also Ro's love interest.
Yes.
And she's Haru's rival.
Yes.
For their
affection.
Yeah, for Riku's affection.
Yeah. And Haru does meet up with Ro at the school where he goes to school. And like I mentioned, she's a dropout, but she also works at the maid cafe, and she has this cute little maid outfit and does deliveries.
Yeah.
And that's how they interact. They interacted a few times, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And they even walked together home one time. And that's a part of the show that's just weirdly cute, is that every character walks with somebody home.
This is kind of a device that I found. I got tired.
No, it's interchangeable.
It wasn't that I was tired of the device.
Yeah.
I'm just like, these people are always walking somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and like we mentioned, the slower pace, like getting to know the characters, dialogue heavy, very heavy.
Well, there's a lot of things that happens on these walks.
Yeah.
And a lot of there's a moment where Shinako walks with Ryoku, and she invites him in.
Yeah.
And then changes her mind.
Yes.
And this wouldn't have happened if he wasn't walking her home.
No, and that's a key thing about this. Like we mentioned with their reserved personalities. One's not gonna like overcome the other kind of thing. And their friends mention it, dude, you missed your chance. Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her coworker says, "What?"
Yeah. His friend Takanori, like his friend from college, like he's pretty much like what Ryuko could have been, married already kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's opposite, if you will. And he mentions like you have to take these chances, man. And this is the real elements coming in because
these opportunities aren't going to come again.
They don't. And I will tell you this from my experiences in my dating life. Let me tell you,
life is short.
Life is short, and ultimately, you find your calling, as it were. And I'm not forcing people to go to the black book right now.
Oh, Jack.
Nah. This the enemy could do it.
I could see that. I could see that. Their relationship, as it were, and it develops. They finally do start dating. It takes some time. She has to struggle through. But she's always reserved, and he starts to. Riku starts to question whether or not she's capable.
Yeah, and like like has she really moved on to dealing with Ro?
Well, she moves on from the boyfriend that has passed away.
Eventually, yeah, yeah,
Eventually, it takes time, but she moves on. She hasn't had an intimate relationship, so she's really nervous about that, and she wants Ryuku to take his time. But there's a telling moment where Haru shows up, and she realizes that Shinako and Riku have gotten together,
yeah,
and it's a very sad moment for her because you've watched Haru is the most positive person on the show.
yeah.
She's bright and shiny, and it's that moment, it's that heart wrenching moment where she realizes, oh,
This is it.
I lost.
Yeah, and this is
Yeah,
how it is, huh? That's their quote.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
If that isn't real life, I
A-
don't know what is.
And the thing is, though, in that moment when Haru leaves, uh, Riku doesn't go chasing after her.
No.
He lets her go
Yeah.
because he's with the girl that he wants to be with.
And you find out later on that this is just how Rico is,
Mhm.
and he has feelings towards Haru. He always has.
Well, what I was trying to make is that when the opposite, when you get the moment where Ro finds out that they're dating, um,
It's anger.
well, it's anger, but Shinako chases after him,
Yeah.
and I think that's the moment where Riku realizes that Shinako cares more about Ro and that relationship than any other relationship,
Yeah.
and so I think that's what sets him down the path of like, yeah, I'm with the girl that I had a crush on, but is this gonna work
Yeah.
out?
And he mentions it near the end where it's not really making me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even though he was over the moon finally getting his moment, but it's like a twisted type of happiness.
Well, I think it comes into play with commitment,
Yeah.
the theme of commitment, in that he could go along with this.
Yeah.
And he's a nice enough guy and he's reserved, and it would be easy to continue to go along with this, but it's not, and he says it too, that's his comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think for both of them, they would be really comfortable drifting off into this. And I think Riku realizes that would we be happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads to the final episode.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I think this is one of my all-time favorite final episodes.
Oh yeah. I love that train ride for him.
Yeah.
Because he's made his choice. He's gonna go try to get Haru.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Because you have us like, it's like, all right, you have your traditional romantic setup where
Yeah.
the guys had this crush for this girl for so long. They finally end up together.
And it works.
And it works.
In a weird way.
Well,
In a weird way.
there's definitely, they both have their reservations,
Yeah.
like we've talked about. But he's realized that if he goes along with this, he's gonna regret that they're. Well, what he tells her, he says that I can't proudly admit my love for you, and I think what that is that he actually has feelings for Haru, and he realizes that if he doesn't act on them now, it's not fair to Shinako. Not fair to him. It's not fair to Haru. It's not fair to Shinako.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he feels like, am I being selfish? Is this a mistake? And so he's kind of talking to himself in a way that he hasn't for the rest of the show.
Yeah, yeah.
He's been quiet and reserved. And now we kind of see him like breaking all of that down because he's tried to play it safe.
Yeah.
The entire time. He hasn't taken a risk. He's taken a risk finally with his career, and he's found, he's like, I'm going to do this. And so this is just another step for him. He's like, all right. And he says, he tells Haru when he finally finds her, he tells her, and that was very cool. The whole bus scene where the crow says, hey, hey, hey.
Yeah. He was the true MVP. I wrote that in my notes.
There you go.
He's
Yeah.
the real MVP.
He's like, hey, man, I got to save this. I got to save my girl.
Katsuke, you're the man, Raven.
Katsuke is the man. He's like, he's got to save her.
Crow girl needs his boyfriend.
There you go. And so, he he's there, and he tells her, he's like, maybe I just like to have a woman that gives me attention.
Yeah.
He's like, and Haru punches the shit out of him
because she didn't realize he was real.
No, she's like she thinks he's a hallucination, and she's
Yeah.
like she punches him, and she's like, "Wait, what? You're real?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?" And he's there to confess that he's in love with her.
Yeah, yeah.
And she says, "Say it again," and he's like, "What?" Because it was hard enough. It's hard for him because he has to. This is raw.
Yeah.
This isn't safe.
No.
This isn't safe at all for him. He's played it safe. And this is raw.
Yeah.
This is like raw emotion that he has to deal with. And Haru has been dealing with this the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's been painful for her. And
because she was taking it back. She admits or she makes an agreement to be the backup.
Yeah, which is like ouch.
Yeah, I know. But it's growing pains. She is young. She's 18. So
yeah. And so, but my favorite, and I watched this. I rewinded this maybe about 5 times. The look in her eyes, just the fire. She's so happy.
Yeah.
She's so ecstatically happy. That shine in her eyes. You could just see the reaction. Like she's like butterflies are flittering up from her body, and just like she's just like, what? It's like, and that moment, I think, sealed the deal for me with this anime. It's like, I love this anime.
I know.
Yeah,
And
that moment.
guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We forgot to bring this up, but I remember watching this on a whim. It was one of those at the time when I was checking it out. It wasn't completed just yet. I don't think, and I rarely do that. I like to start from beginning, either when it starts or when it's completed.
Yeah.
I rarely do it in between. And somehow, some way, I checked it out. I'm like, this looks like a slice of life.
Yeah, this wasn't one that I recommended. I don't think we even recommended. We came to this one separately.
No, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to bring up. Because I mentioned it to you. And you're like, oh, okay, that seems nice. I'm like, it's a really nice slice of life. You will like this. I think you would like this, Edwin. You completed it, or up to the point past me, because I only did 3 or 4 episodes.
I got hooked.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, I watched every episode. I'm like, how?
Dude. Yeah. Well, that's the thing about both of these shows. I mean, you get sucked in. It was harder to watch them together. Watching them separately
I would agree.
Don't watch these shows at the same time, because the pacing is really different.
Especially Horimiya for its own faults, which is not to their faults. There you go. Because with the manga structure and what they have with the production, it's like we discussed, its own thing.
Well, you'll get sucked in. Like with Horimiya, you'll get sucked in and you'll want to watch all the episodes and you won't want to watch anything else.
Yeah.
It's just that it's that good. With singyesterdayforme, the pacing is a lot slower. It takes its time. It's a drama. So watching them together, no, just don't do it. Yeah. Watch them separately. Yeah.
And I would like to add this one note. Ilya Kuvshinov, one of the most popular artists out there.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Especially on Instagram, DeviantArt. He's a true gem and a remarkable talent. He's also worked on the new Ghost in a Shell 2045 and a movie To the Wonderland. His art books sell immediately. He has a really strong following. This Sing Yesterday for me, I found out, is technically his inspiration.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he mentions in his blog, a week ago, my favorite manga, Sing Yesterday for me, came to an end after 18 years of serialization. This was in 2015 or so. They celebrate the end of the most important story of my life. I decided to do a little fan video about this manga.
Wow.
Yeah, the video is excellent. And it's all these sketches of Haru and Ryuko and everything.
Oh, wow. So this is kind of the manga that inspired him to be an artist.
Yeah.
Wow.
And do you remember the final ending, the third ending, with all the character designs?
Yeah.
With Haru with the crow and everything?
Yeah. Well, that's him?
That's him.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it comes full circle for him. So if you're a fan of Kuvshinov, I highly recommend this anime, because, this will inspire the artists in you. And also, I would like to add this tidbit article from Liz Adler. She mentions a few facts of Sing Yesterday for me. And one we like to mention is that the creator is a woman, and she's done a few others, Lamb of the Lamb and Kurogane. and I like to check those out immediately because she like if it took her this long to make Sing Yesterday for me, I'm curious of her process and her other works too.
That would be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. At some point, we're gonna have to interview.
these people
Yeah.
and learn Japanese or something. I mean, this is like my life ambitions right now.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we discussed this before recording, but the title "Sing Yesterday" for me is from a band. One of their songs, RC Succession. They're a band from Tokyo. They came around in the '60s and they had a long career up to the '90s. And one of their song titles is "Sing Yesterday." So it's a cute little like tidbit. And the creator told me she was a big fan of that band.
Oh, cool.
In the character design from the show, Junichiro Taniguchi, he also did Full Metal Alchemist, X Men, the Japanese one, and
Okay.
Triple X Holic,
Oh, okay.
which is fascinating.
I like that show.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, uh, one of the theme songs, Kago no Naki ni Tori, from the band Uranus. That title, Kago no Naki Tori, is a bird in a cage.
Oh,
It's pretty much ties in with Ryuko and Haru in a weird way.
very fitting for the
Yeah,
anime.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like I said earlier, like the crows are a big important thing because technically that's all these characters, they're just living lives like a bird.
Well, they're the different. It's also while this show is about one of the main themes is about commitment. It's also breaking out of what not what people think you should do, but breaking out of what it is the momentum of your life.
Yeah,
It's like we're held back by our past, we're informed by it, we're pushed forward by it, but it's like where do we want to go?
yeah,
Will we let our past determine that, or will we create our own future?
yeah.
Mhm.
That's fitting. We're going to be taking our final break. Coming up, we're going to have the 950 Club's manga recommends, voice connections, wallet slayers, and finally, our general recommends. Stay tuned.
And now for a segment that we like to call Connections, where we look into the voice actors and studios for the two anime that we have just discussed. For Seeing Yesterday for me, it was produced by Studio Daga Kobo, which also produced Monthly Girls Noziku-kun, New Game, Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle,
love that
which
one.
is one of our favorites.
I love that one.
And then it's coming out with My Senpai is Annoying, which I actually recommended on the show. Horimiya, that was produced by Studio Cloverworks, which also produced My Darling in the Franxx. Rascal Does Not Dream About Burning Girl Senpai, which we definitely need to talk about at some point.
One of Edwin's favorites.
That's right. The Promised Neverland, Wonder Egg Priority, another one of my favorites, the sci-fi action thriller Birdie the Mighty Decoded, and Jack's least favorite anime
Of all time.
Sword Art Online.
Oh boy, I want to shake their hands for that one.
Now, for the voice actors, Horimiya, Izumi was voiced by Koki Uchiyama, who also voiced Doge in Jujutsu Kaisen, Ri in Demon Slayer, and Tomoru Shigaraki in My Hero Academia. The English voice actor for the dub, Alejandro Sab, was also the voice actor for the Demon King in Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle.
And for the English side of Horimiya, the voice actress for Yuki is also Inaris Quiones. Quiones?
Mm-hmm.
Inaris Quiones. She also has worked on Wonder Egg Priority as Rika, which we just discussed. Edwin really likes that one. And then she's also done ReZero. as one of my favorite characters, Enchendina.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I like her. She's probably my favorite character in that show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
For Horimiya, Toru, actually the English voice actor Zeno Robinson, actually was in Tokyo Revengers, Burn the Witch.
Burn the Witch is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of our faves. Nor in the hidden dungeon only I can enter. Yusuke in I'm Standing on a Million Lives, and Hawks in My Hero Academia.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Mhm.
and Hawks is one of my favorite characters as well. And for Sing Yesterday, for me, even though it's a limited cast, it's an interesting cast because we mentioned earlier how our second episode with Ad Taxi, the voice of Ro is the same voice as Odekawa, and his name is Natsuki Hane. And yeah, he's had a whole slew of things, and of course we mentioned he's also Tanjiro in Demon Slayer. For the voice of Ryuko, very fascinating one, Chikahiro Kobayashi. He has a wolf track. Let's put it that way, because in our latest episode with the time I got reincarnated as a slime, he plays the big wolf Ranga.
Mhm.
Just imagine this lonely loafer as a big wolf.
Yep.
And he also with another wolf lineage, Legoshi from Beastars, which is gaining popularity right now. And Haru, I know a lot of people love Haru. I cannot mention her background. Her voice actor is Yumi Miyamoto. She has various works from Blue Period to Godzilla, and also It Invaded. So yeah, she has a nice little repertoire.
And we really liked It Invaded.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that sometime.
Yeah, decent mystery. I would say that's a good one. And finally, for this one's ties in towards our Wallet Slayers because the voice for Shinako is this. The voice actress is Kana Hanazawa. She's not a good slew, but specifically, she did Ichika from Quintessential Quintuplets. And I have a story in regards to Wallet Slayers because I went to our local manga shop and all the other quintessential quintuplets, all their figurines and stuff like that, their little knickknacks, all gone. The only quintessential that's there was Ichika. And Ichika kind of has a raw deal. She was the most aggressive of the quintessential, if you follow that show, quintessential quintuplets. But I had to get it. So Shinako has ties with Ichika. So I now look fondly at Ichika.
And I'm going to throw in one more for Hori. The voice actress was Haruka Damasu, and she actually voiced 02 from My Darling in the Franxx. But she also voiced Asuna from Sword Art Online.
Going back to Sword Art Online. Why? Why do you do this to me? It's
Look,
like
it's a double whammy, man. We love 02, but your hatred of SAO, man.
Asuna is an interesting character. I'm not gonna lie, but
She was
the shows.
Yeah, I liked her. I liked her and Kirito's relationship.
Yeah.
I know that we'll have to do an SAO breakdown at some point.
And then for your Wallet Slayer as well.
Oh, for my Wallet Slayer, actually, that brings us back to 02. The Crunchyroll store has a pre-order for an amazing 02 figure for My Darling in the Franxx. She's wearing her schoolgirl outfit. She's standing on a gigantic pink crane, and her hair is blowing in the wind. It is, oh man, I want that statue so bad. But it is $280.
Our Waller Slayers connected with our connection, so I like that.
Yeah.
It comes full circle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty cool. I don't mind getting that myself.
Yep.
Wow. And then now for our manga recommends. For mine's a little bit interesting. It's a supernatural kind of historical kind of throwback type of manga. It's from author Naoki Urasawa. He's done 20th Century Boys, and I would consider him like a film director in a weird way because his stories are definitely, you feel like you're watching an old Japanese film. And his newest one, Asador, it's getting quite notoriety lately. It's getting very popular. I've seen a lot of manga posts websites mentioning it, how it's such a great manga series, and it's relatively young. It's about 4 or 5 volumes in initially, or at least the 4th or 5th one in English coming out soon. 3 at the moment. But Asador is a throwback, like I said, and the context is I can't spoil it. It's one of those ones where you just have to read it and go along with it because the ending is key for the first volume. I won't go into spoils, and yeah, I would avoid reading descriptions about it too. But the title is Asador, Asa Dor, which is morning in Japanese, if I'm not mistaken.
So I was looking for something different. So I read the first volume of Reborn as a Space Mercenary. So the complete title is Reborn as a Space Mercenary. I woke up piloting the strongest starship. Uh, it's an isekai. It's
In
an
space.
isekai. It's an isekai in space. Uh, I wasn't it wasn't bad, but it definitely followed a lot of the plot points of an isekai. I found that a little bit disappointing, but I liked the setting. The setting was a little bit different. He wakes up in his favorite game. He's the captain of this mighty starship. Uh, and so I'm like, oh, cool. This is going to be different. So he lands on a planet. He encounters pirates. He defeats the ships. There's a little bit of a space battle. But then once he gets to the surface of the planet, he encounters an elf girl. And I'm like, he encounters an elf girl who takes him to the mercenary guild and gets him registered. And there's a test.
Jobless.
Yeah, it's like okay. And then the minute he leaves the guild, he saves a girl who's being attacked by some thugs. And I'm like, oh man, this is the stories. I like the artwork. I like the setting. The story could have been a little bit more original. I'm hoping that the volumes to come are a little bit different. I'm hoping I can give it a stronger recommendation then. But it was a change of pace. I like that part. Let's see what they do with it. If it gets better as it goes along, I'm hoping there's an anime because I would love to see the space
Yeah,
battles.
and you were
Yeah.
describing to me, we were discussing it would be cool as an anime. Like I would welcome it in open arms.
Well, I think that it would be better as an anime
Yeah.
in that you could see the space battles. There'd be a lot more visually to do there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, our recommends. Our final closure for this excellent episode. I have to come in full circle with Sing Yesterday for me because, like I was mentioning throughout that segment, Sing Yesterday for me remarkably takes place in the '90s, even though it's relatively modern. But yeah, here and there are knickknacks towards like time lapse. One that I immediately can't help but call back for with this one is pretty much my first ever slice of life anime. The one I was like, yeah, this is my cup of tea. Welcome to the NHK. Now, once you watch this one and Sing Yesterday for me, I would recommend like watching Sing Yesterday for me first because that one's like a more traditional romance. Welcome to NHK is completely opposite.
Yep. That's a slice of life.
Well, it's slice of life to the bone, and you don't know where you're going yourself into because it gets into surreal territory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's also it changes your wrongs, changes your ways type of anime because if you're in that state of like manic depression or stuff like that, it's a it's a rare type of anime where it discusses those issues.
Yeah,
Mental health.
explores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful the art and the voice acting. But I would recommend first with Welcome to NHK the light novel. The author is Tatsuhiko Takimoto, and the novel is quite fascinating. It's you get into the headspace of the main character, and wow, Sato is a case study, and it's probably one of the best books I ever read. Top 10 in my book. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Yeah. For my recommendations, I'm actually going to recommend some other romantic comedies or some other romantic anime for your viewing pleasure. If you liked Horimiya and if you liked Sing Yesterday for Me, you should check out these other ones because they're all really good. Uh, Very different from the two shows we've talked about now, a little bit more traditional. You have Toradora.
Toradora is excellent.
Yeah, Palm Top Tiger, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the art style is very, very similar to Horimiya too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have My Teen Romantic Comedy.
Yes.
Yes,
And
which Jack and I both love.
Toradora and My Teen Romantic Comedy are pretty much like the parents of Horimiya.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
they definitely set the tone. There's the slapstickiness of Toradora and the angst of My Teen Romantic Comedy. They both get translated very well into Horimiya.
And love triangles and the typical high school stuff.
Yep.
And the main characters, finding a way. Let's put it that way.
Yep. And then finally, Love, Chinubio, and Other Delusions.
I
which
have
was
to finish that one.
So cute.
Yeah. And that
So
and that
cute.
one's like good polar opposite, but it's in the same like subject genre of romance because it's quirky, it's unique. I will admit.
Well,
that.
I think that the characters are so different, but I think at the same time you also have that goofiness of the Shunubio,
Yeah.
and then the awesome surreal battle scenes that I love when they're taking regular objects and turning them into like these super weapons. But at the same time, you have the serious side of it, and I think that's handled really well.
Yeah, I agree. And then one little side note, the director of Horimiya, Masashi Ishihama, also has worked Welcome to the NHK, so comes in full circle. I love it.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
And that's it for another episode of the 950 Club. Thank you for joining in.
Yeah, please like, subscribe, download, share. Yeah, I know we have to plug it in, but it helps our cause. It helps us, give us the kudos to do this thing. So we do greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Until next time.
Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.